Welcome to Decoding the Code, the YouTube show for developers. Get ready for your host, Mark Backus.
Hello and everyone, welcome to Decoding the Code. Today with Simon Høiberg, a real entrepreneur, the creator of Feed Hive. Hello, Simon, how are you doing?
Hello, Mark. I'm doing very good, thank you. And thanks so much for having me here. It's really a great pleasure already.
Yeah, thank you for coming, or for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with me today. Yes, so the topic today is going to be building SaaS platforms, because you built your SaaS platform, Feed Hive. We get a little bit into that later. But first, I want to talk about your personal coding journey. Can you tell us a little bit, how long is it ago since you started programming, and what is your journey like so far?
Yeah, for sure. I actually started playing around with programming quite early. I probably was around 11 or 12 years old, something like that.
Nice.
In the early teenage years, but it never really got to be anything serious. And I looked into a bunch of different things, music production, and I actually ended up in sales. And from 18, 19 years old, I never really got an education. I just got into sales, and that was really where I was good at that. And I earned good enough money that I certainly couldn't complain. And then I got into an area of sales where I was basically selling software. And the interest in programming and software development never really fully left me. And I had no education in anything, but very slowly, around 20, 21 years old, I started programming a little, building small, simple web pages. And that went into, that was back in the days with PHP, that was the big thing. I built small systems and small pieces of software, small software to help out the selling team that I was with, like a small interactive script manager, so people could remember how to respond to what when they're talking to people. It's these kinds of things. And when I was around 20, 21 years old, I sold my very first web page, which was really I could barely do anything, but I saw an opportunity, and I was good at selling myself. I was also very good at overselling myself. That was something that I did a lot. And there was this opportunity to make a web page for a small gym club at this time, and I just went all in on that and said, that's me. I can deliver that. And they agreed on that, and I had to go home and teach myself a lot of stuff fast to actually deliver that. But I did. They were happy somewhat. They paid me at least for it. And
nice.
From there, I kind of got it definitely caught me to do more software development. And I slowly started doing a small consulting business where I would sell small software solutions, web shops, basically WordPress pages mostly, alongside with my career in sales. And soon I got more and more into consulting, and I got better and better, to a point where I was eight years down the road with doing that. Yeah. I was still working in sales, but my consulting business actually generated more and more and bigger clients. And I found that I could actually now build quite sophisticated software solutions. I think that there's a sense of imposter syndrome playing here. I think when you haven't had any education or haven't been working on a team that much, I think I at least had some completely wild expectations of what people would pay you money for delivering in terms of actual software solutions. But when I got into working with bigger clients as a consultant that invited me to come and help the team, I actually realized that, okay, I'm fully capable of doing that. So why don't I just go full time on this? And I did that around 4 or 5 years ago, stopped doing sales and went full on in my consulting business. And that's what I've done ever since. So I was actually never employed as a software developer. I've always only done my consulting business, and that's what I've been doing up until now as well.
Okay, nice. You talked about your background in marketing. Would you say that benefited you on your journey? I see you sell yourself great on Twitter as well and on other platforms. So how much of an impact did your marketing background have on you?
I think for what I do now, especially becoming a founder and running SaaS products and so on, and doing digital marketing and creating a brand on social media, the marketing part means a lot. Like I've really benefited heavily on that. But I would say as a software developer, it's not strictly necessary, but it is beneficial. I think especially when you are a software developer, especially on bigger teams, you tend to get caught up on very small details, or you're enclosed in this like very small scopes of the overall solution that you're building. And having had the experience of being the guy selling it all the way up there at the higher level of the solution that you're selling, and actually talking to the end users that are going to be willing to pay a lot of money for this software, or the companies that are going to be implementing this software as an integral part of their business routines. Being in that seat, having that perspective actually really did help. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your SaaS product, Feed Hive. Most of some of the audience probably knows it's a platform for scheduling tweets, but can you tell us or the audience a little bit what is Feed Hive? What it is?
Yeah, Feed Hive is basically a tool for creating and managing your, right now it's your tweets. It integrates with Twitter. You can create in an editor, and you can schedule it, and it gives you a super nice overview of all the tweets you have currently in drafts that you can move into a scheduler. It also gives you a couple of unique abilities to actually pre-plan an outline, you can say, for when you are gonna want to tweet on a more ongoing, recurring basis. They're called tweet slots, and you can create these and attach labels to them to symbolize a category. And those you can actually use to automate your whole scheduling process. So instead of picking times manually, you can actually just write something, add a label to it, and say like, this is a code tip, and just press a button, and it will find the next available one in the schedule for you according to the program that you laid out. So that's a little bit of the features that it has right now.
Yeah, I really like the idea, even though I don't use it as intended yet, because I'm more the spontaneous tweeter. But there's definitely some things like, then sometimes I put like 3 memes in a row, and then like 2 weeks nothing or something like that, and then yeah, it's a little bit incongruent. And I think congruency is, or consistency is the word, I think, what people are looking for. And how did you how did you come up with that idea for Feed Hive?
Well, it's actually interesting because Feed Hive in itself is not really an idea I came up with. What are there? At least 50 plus products on the market right now that does exactly this, handles your content and schedules it. So I think in the summer, last summer of 2020, I was starting my whole growth journey on Twitter. I had less than 1,000 followers back at that time. And I started looking into understanding that in order to properly grow and have the results that I desired, I would have to post a lot. I would really have to keep the audience engaged. And as you just mentioned here, consistency, it's the most important ingredients. You can do good content, but you need to make sure to deliver constantly in a constant flow. And I was, of course, looking into tools because I had work, I was busy, I couldn't sit all day on social media and making sure that my content delivered on time. But the tools I found at the market at the time simply didn't offer what I wanted from a social media management tool. So it was really that I started making a small setup for myself. And in order to interact with the Twitter API, which you're basically using to instruct Twitter in when it needs to tweet, even that, there wasn't really many good solutions out there to make that integration. So I started by building a small open source library for Node.js, which is basically a client you can install in any Node.js or JavaScript based frontend or backend. and you can begin interacting with the Twitter API. And I open sourced that and found that there was actually a great interest in that. And then I built what was the very, very early stage of Feed Hive, which was 2-3 cloud functions that I set up on Amazon AWS. And then I had a YAML file that I would use to write threads, and I would have a little CLI tool that I could use to schedule. So I could it was a very tedious, very manual process with uploading images automatically and pointing URLs and making sure very tedious. And then in November 28 last year, I decided that, you know what, let's try to make this into a product. Like if I found a something missing in the market right now, probably there are other users that will find the very same thing missing. So let's give this a go. That was kind of where it started.
Nice. And what was the general idea of the project when it started? Was it like only scheduling, or did you have like some specific pain point in mind you wanted to address?
Yes. I actually think that what I built now with the tweet slots, that was one of the things that I found really useful and that no other tools really offered at the time. When I started doing social media and posting a lot, I did realize that I have to schedule more than 20 tweets alone every week. And sitting down on Sundays, which I typically do content creation and scheduling, and just like on demand, sit down and say like, now I'm going to write 20 tweets. That can be difficult. And what I found extremely useful is to keep the schema. So I would literally just write it down on a piece of paper. I need to post 4 coding tips, 2 suggestions for stuff people can read, 3 fillers, 1 meme, 1. So I would basically just lay down a schedule like that, like a program for myself. And this exact feature, doing this and then further automating that process, because that was really what made me super productive and super effective. When I had this list, I could just sit every Sunday, and it was much, much easier than just getting to the keyboard and do like, what do I tweet? To just have this checklist of things that I just need to go through and just start doing it. It made me so much more productive. And that was really the thing that I thought, like, if I can make this into a SaaS product, I'm sure that other people will have this issue. And if I can make this into a SaaS product, I may actually be onto something here. No one else on the market offered this feature at the time.
Yeah, I definitely think you are onto something. And also your traction, the product, the traction product is getting, I think it shows a little bit into the right direction. I see some big accounts using Feed Hive on a regular basis. And I wanted to talk now a little bit with you about building in public. Like, you are very open about what you're building, which I find it's very cool. So you can see this thing developing, and you can even like comment stuff, and you respond always to suggestions, which I think is really nice. Is this a deliberate choice to? Did you say, okay, I will build this in public so people can see how it works when you develop something, or is it more like a thing that you share anyways stuff, and you told yourself, why not also share like this journey?
It was quite deliberate. I really like the concept of building in public and the whole open startup movement. I really think that's cool. I think it's beneficial for people in a very specific situation. That would be like solo founders or small startups, people doing small indie products. I think when you post about your process, it's really not that people sit there and think, I'm just dying curious about how Feed Hive is doing. What people get out of it is hope. You inspire. You actually deliver something that makes people think like, okay, maybe that's actually something I could do as well, and maybe even give them the courage to do something similar. So I think building in public was perfect for the situation I was in. I don't think it makes a lot of sense if you are a medium to large company, like posting and sharing that now we have $650,000 recurring revenue every month. doesn't really give people a lot of hope, or like that's so big, and it won't really make people resonate, because people don't really care. What people care about is that hope that you deliver. For me, it makes perfect sense. I would definitely advise this. It does take a lot of courage, because you are really putting yourself out there, and there's a lot of people. Like I think that there's you get into this imagination that a lot of people will judge you based on this, and I think it's important to remember that it's actually when you post these not that impressive numbers that people like it the most, because this is where people actually get their hopes up and say like, okay, I could maybe even do something like that. So for people building in public, these are the things that you want to share. It's not even that much the super impressive stuff. Like I keep the mediocre stuff as well, because that's really what people get a lot out of. And I would definitely recommend it. For me, it was deliberate. It's an awesome way to do marketing. It's the really good way to create awareness about what you're doing.
Nice. Yes, I remember a tweet when you launched it. You wrote something like 63 days of development, which is not all that much. Like, and you have like a complete product. It's it's ready to go, and now you're just adding features and fixing bugs. So that's also like a number, like, oh yeah, in 2 months I can build this. But
exactly.
Coming back a little bit to building in public. Building in public can be beneficial. You said you inspire people. People can see, oh, this is how something works. But what about people that will steal your ideas? Are you afraid that someone comes along and copies the idea of Feed Hive, or maybe that already happened? And how do you deal with that?
I love this question, because it's actually one of these questions that has more to it that you would typically think. Like often when I hear this debate about putting it out there and people stealing your idea, there are two kind of sides. There's the side that says like, don't do that, like keep it to yourself, you won't want to reveal it. Then there's the other side that typically says like, no, don't worry, people won't steal your idea anyway. And I don't think none of them are entirely true. When you put your idea out there early, there is a legit chance that someone will come and steal it and run with it. And that's a risk that you just need to live with. That can happen, and it does happen. However, when you kind of like break the reasoning down for this, the reason that people don't want to put it out there in fear that people want to steal it, they're really saying they want an advantage. They want to be ahead of the game when they do that, because it like eventually you do need to put the idea out there, right? Like you need to market it, you need to sell it to your clients, and at that day of launch, the idea will be out there, and all your competitors can now steal it if they want to. So the reasoning is really to say that day when I do that, I will be so much ahead of the game that potential competitors won't have a chance. I'm way ahead. And where that might be true, here's the backflip of that. If you sit in secrecy and build, and you only include very few or maybe even no users at all, the day that you launch, you may be ahead of the game, but you will most likely be ahead of the game in a completely wrong direction. And what will happen is that you will launch, a lot of users will now get into the platform. They may be interested, but they will find that the way that you did it just doesn't really suit them. It is not really helpful. They will now begin to give you all this feedback very publicly. And you will most likely have to start all over. So not only will you be back at square one, but now you're also creating a lot of feedback that your competitors can now take and use to start their own thing. So really, by not revealing your idea first, you're actually giving your competitors an advantage. So I would highly recommend to just get the idea out there and get feedback, and then just say, fair enough, there's risk associated with both of these, because when I put it out there, there's a risk that someone might steal it. But live with that, because the risk of you hitting it perfectly right the first time by building ahead in secret will be way higher. You most likely will not have a successful product that way.
It's very expensive, right? Like you're there. Like I saw a tweet from you, I think today, even like you can't waterfall it. Something, was it you or someone else?
Yeah, I tweeted that. Yeah.
You can't waterfall it, because if you develop everything, it can be perfect for you and or what you thought the people would want, and then at the end it's like, okay, not exactly. so you are doing like the lean startup kind of
Absolutely. I'm a
thing.
huge
Yeah.
fan of lean startup like that. And also,
Yeah.
it's also worth adding that I actually have. There are a couple of other small indie products on the market right now that does the same as Feed Hive, and I see the founders of these products log into Feed Hive regularly, and I also do see them implementing Feed Hive features with like a delay of 2-3 weeks, and I'm 100% fine with that. That's really not like. I think you don't really want to worry about competitors. What you want to worry about is execution. You want to sit down and tell yourself that I'm going to make the best product here because competitors will be there. Even if you happen to hit it perfectly right that first time and you got that advantage. If you're imagining your SaaS product being on the market for years down the road, there will still be plenty of time for your competitors to catch up on you. And by nature, you can't keep it a secret forever. And the users, they don't care who got the idea first. They only want to use it like a good product. So don't sit down and worry about competitors. Worry about executing instead and making the best product that you can. That's the best way to really face that fear.
Nice. And what are some other tips you can give people that say like, oh yeah, I have this idea for a SaaS product, and where do I even start? Do you have some tips about like how to even like get going on building your product? Because it's a long road, as I understand it.
Absolutely, it is. And now you mentioned lean startup just before. I think this whole mentality of building a fully user-centric, user-driven product is really what you want to be doing. If I had built quite like just a little bit further ahead with Feed Hive, I would have built something that was probably completely going to miss the target. So what I did with Feed Hive was I started the 28th of November to build something, and I set very basic stuff up. And already, I think it was 10 days after, I went into I have these Twitter groups on Twitter that I talk to with some people in private, and I just posted it in there saying, like, I'm building this tool. Would you want to try to come and be early adopters on this? And 25 people signed up, and we created a separate group just for Feed Hive feedback. And from day one, they were delivering all this crucial feedback that I needed to develop a good product. So start like build something super small and tiny, and then get users on board and build it with the users. One thing is going out and asking users, what do you think of this and this? Because feedback is important. But what I think is even more essential is to get some early adopters on board that's kind of there to stay. They want to build this thing with you. I spoke to people daily in that group in the entire December and a good part of January, and for actually also February. Actually, we talk almost daily in there still about upcoming features and Feed Hive and so on. So do yourself a favor, do that. Spend some time grooming your network and find a few. It doesn't need to be 25. It can be 100. It can also be 5 or just a couple. But just get some users on board so you know that you're building this product for someone, not your imagination, but for someone that's going to be using it almost from day one.
Okay, that's definitely a good advice to like, don't just build something because you think it will be right, but have someone who like tells you here and there. So you can't be afraid of criticism, like,
absolutely,
or afraid that your idea will be maybe not good. I think that's an important thing to mention, that when you put it out there, there is a chance that people are like, yeah, well, this is pretty cool, but I wouldn't use it because of X and Y and Z.
Absolutely.
But the good thing is, like, what X, Y, and Z are, and instead of just like assuming things. I think assuming is like very dangerous for startups.
Very much. And what the only thing that you can assume is that you most likely will assume wrong. And I actually think kind of back to the whole building in public and putting it out there. You can because I think that fear of being rejected, or maybe even publicly it's embarrassing to look like a failure, you built something wrong. You can just ask yourself what you think would be worse, to build something, put 1,000 hours into it, then publish a fully fledged product, and then no one really caring? Or is it less embarrassing to put something out that you spent 20 hours on, at some prototype, high fidelity, you can click around, and then people saying, nah, which of these are gonna hurt the most? So if you're afraid in the beginning and you keep pushing, you're not ever gonna get rid of that fear of being rejected. You're only gonna make it worse, because after a long time, it will really hurt if you put 1,000 hours and a lot of money and a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to grow a thick skin for something like that. Like Gary Vaynerchuk always says, like, you can't care too much what others think, because you will just like be behind. Like, I don't know, you just cannot care. Well, or should care, but in a way constructive, not like just be like, oh my God, they said that my interface is ugly, or they said that there are too many bugs or something. I think it's like you do your thing and just look ahead instead of backwards, which is
absolutely.
Yeah. A question I had here really at the beginning, I forgot to ask you, can you tell us which tech stack you're using for this, or is it a secret?
It's not a secret at all, and in fact, you can visit my YouTube channel. I recently put a video going through breaking it completely down, but I'll be happy to elaborate here as well. I'm using AWS, and I'm using React on the front end. So that's like the very basic.
Nice.
But Feed Hive in itself is an entire serverless application. It has some very great benefits, especially when you're bootstrapping, given that you don't really pay for uptime on anything. So if you architect this the right way, you're going to be paying for the amount of time that your individual functions are executed in the cloud, and per time that you're going to read something from the database, write something to the database, read and write to the cache, so on and so on. And in terms of scalability of a SaaS product, doing this kind of architecture is really good, because when you don't have any users, you pay close to nothing, and then it actually scales quite nicely when you go up there. Of course, if you get millions of users, at some point it may be beneficial to run something that is based on a more pay-per uptime approach. Then you get into something bigger like Kubernetes, where you can run nodes that are constantly running and handling traffic. But it's for a long time there. Running a completely serverless application is absolutely something I will recommend.
All right. Yeah, that would have been my next question about scaling. How do you plan that? But you already answered. Serverless is a great way to start, and then later you can scale if needed. If you have millions of users. All right. Do you have maybe some current numbers, like in terms of user count or monthly recurring revenue? Or do you have something you can tell us how much you had for how long have you been developing it now?
That must be a little more than 3 months.
A little bit more than 3 months. Okay. And how many users and revenue do you have?
Let me just find right here. I actually have some numbers. I always have numbers ready when someone's asking. So right now there are 1,000 users, just around 1,000 users that have created a profile on Feed Hive, and
nice.
There are 80 to 100 users every day that log in. So that are unique daily active users.
Wow, nice. And in terms of revenue, do you have many people buying the subscription?
Actually, more than I could have hoped at this point. We have now 99 people on the paid plan, which
nice.
which leads to around 530 monthly recurring revenue dollars. That is.
Congratulations to that.
Thank you.
That are great numbers.
Cool. That's okay for the place that we're in, and that this is still really a smaller indie product. Then I'm very satisfied with it. Absolutely.
Nice. And on the long, no, not on the long term, on the short or middle term, what are your goals for Feed Hive? For example, in this year, 2021, what would the goals more or less be?
Well, more or less, it would be that Feed Hive hits 10,000 monthly recurring revenue.
Nice.
But there is a but to that, because I actually have a discreet hope that it will also be more. I can reveal that we are actually a few people involved now, and that I am we're establishing an actual team at this point. So I
Nice.
already have one public collaboration with Dan Spratling from a Twitter guy
yeah.
that's really awesome to do UX, and a great designer. He's helping out with the web page and a complete redesign of the app. And then there's a co-founder that joined, and then there's going to be 2 more developers joining. All
Whoa.
people that are known in the tech Twitter space. I can't disclose more right now, but we are going to be a team of 5 people very soon. And with that in mind, I really actually envision that we can take this also quite a bit further than 10K this year. But let's see.
Nice.
It's hard.
Yeah, well, I will be following this thing. I hope the audience as well, because it's always nice to see like a startup like starting and growing and everything. What I also wanted to ask you about the general thing of creating a startup or SaaS and marketing it and so on. Do you need to be a specific kind of person to do this? Like, do you need some skills that are beyond the technical? What else do you need to do something like this, to put it off?
I think that you most definitely do need skills beyond just being a good developer. There's a saying that to build a really good SaaS product, you need a hacker, a hipster, and a hustler. So there are 3 H's right there. And the hacker being the software engineer that can build a super nice scalable solution. But you also need the hustler, a person that can sell it and really knows a lot about sales and marketing. And you also need a hipster. You need someone that can really make it more fresh, more modern, and more appealing than your competitors. And most likely, you won't have all of these 3 in you. I know that I don't. And I think it's important to plain down just admit that. You can get far by doing a product as a solo founder, but as soon as you get to a point where you realize that I may actually be onto something here, go out and find co-founders. That's the best thing you can do, because you won't have all of these 3 in you. I've been so happy to have both the hustler and the hacker in me. So I have a background in sales, and I'm a software developer now, which I'm fortunate to do so. I don't think that in the world of software development, people that are into coding and have been doing that their whole life, they're not just going to be picking up being a good salesman. So admit that and go and find someone who is. And I want to say to all people that are software engineers out there that if you want to found a SaaS product, there's absolutely no doubt that you as a software engineer are in the best possible position, because there are a lot of people out there that can do marketing. Really, people almost overbidding each other. And again, with the UX designer, there are like a designer in general, they're a bit more expensive, but you as a software engineer is going to be, in terms of budgeting and pricing, you're going to be the expensive one. Imagine you being the marketing guy with a great idea. You have to go out and find yourself software engineers. It's big risk to take because it's super pricey. If you're the software engineer, you can actually acquire the 2 others, especially the salesperson, for a fair amount of money. They're not that pricey on the market right now. And that's just something to keep in mind. Ideally, you go out and find co-founders that join in and get equity. But if you want to actually establish a team and pay, you're really in the best position. You can do consulting on the side and actually earn enough money to pay quite a good deal of the other people that you want on board. But yes, to answer your question, you do need more than just being a software engineer. And there's no shame in going out there and finding people that are good at the stuff that you're not good at.
Oh, nice. So that's it with the questions. And I just want to, like, sometimes on this show, I have like myths that I want to debunk. So also this time for SaaS products, I think the topic lends itself to, there's some myth about it. So I Googled some and I brought you some. And would you mind if you just, I ask them to you and you quickly answer if is it a myth or is it debunked, and why?
I can try, yeah.
All right. First one, you can't sell until your product is perfect. It's already a good one.
That's absolutely false. That's a myth. I think that everything proves that. Just look at the indie products that's going on Twitter right now. People are more than willing to pay for something that's undone. If you show goodwill, if the potential is there, if they're looking forward to the product being polished. Just as a quick note, I can say, just after I launched Feed Hive publicly for everyone, the following upcoming days, there were so many bug reports, like even people that had paid for the product, it was storming in. And everyone was just nice. Like people even went through the trouble of making screenshots and small videos to explain and saying, like, I really love your product. I just want it to be even more cool. So don't be afraid of publishing something that you're not fully 100% proud of yet. You can easily market it and you can also sell it for sure.
All right. Myth number 2, SaaS is built for low-end users.
SaaS is built for low-end users. That's entirely not true. This may have been true many years ago when this idea of selling software on a subscription basis was very new. Today, you have products like Adobe Cloud, Creative Cloud, for instance. Essentially, it's a SaaS product, and there are professionals in the entire world using stuff like that. Amazon, like Netflix, is running on Amazon. Amazon is a SaaS product, essentially it is. And like someone like Netflix is running their entire infrastructure on Amazon Web Services. So that's 100% false. It's not just for low-end users, no.
All right. With SaaS, you lose control of your data because it's all on your server, and
you don't own it. It's partially true. It's not 100% false. However, I do want to say that most good SaaS products, they offer ways to export data points from the application that you can import into something else. There are a lot of regulations in terms of how you keep and persist data. It's not 100% something I can debunk. So I would say if you're as a business investing in a SaaS product and you have this worry, do make a little research about how the SaaS product is handling data.
All right. And I think the last one, SaaS applications, because they share data and everything, they are unsecure.
I don't believe that that's true. Again, it's hard to say because it all comes down to how the individual product is handling things. But there are so many great third-party providers of authentication and security modules today, and mostly all SaaS products are using them. So in terms of data integrity, it's not, you can't per definition debunk that entirely, but it's not something in most cases that you should worry about.
All right. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Is there maybe something, Simon, that you wanted to tell the audience about SaaS in general or Feed Hive in particular?
Yes, there's actually one thing that I would really like to add to any founders out there that are looking to build a SaaS product. Do not be afraid to enter an established market. It's one of the things that I hear and one of the fears that I hear the most. And it's like there are two types of founders in the world, right? That there's the kind of founder that never really saw themselves as being a SaaS founder or running a SaaS product, but they just happen to stumble upon this solution and it's just an itch so bad that they just can't help it. There are not a lot of founders like that. Most founders out there are guys like me that says, like, I just want to run a SaaS product, like any SaaS product, really. It's just like, I really like that way of doing business and making a living for myself. So I'm really just looking for something that will work and that people will be willing to pay for. If you're that kind of founder, enter an established market. it's by far the easiest you will get into. Don't try to be super innovative. And there's a difference between a saturated market and an established market. Where a saturated market is a market where the demand is so low and that the supply is just like really fighting to fighting over the few clients that there's left. An established market is a market where supply and demand is kind of like racing. And that's where you see management tools, productivity tools, tools that you can use to like task management and project management and things you can do note down stuff with. You see new one launch like all the time. And it's not that people are like, can you come up with something more unique? No, it's just that it's a super, super good market. There are so incredibly many users out there that there will for sure be users that like exactly the version that you did. And there's really enough for everyone. When I was entering with Feed Hive, there was Hootsuite and Buffer and a lot of other really big players out there, but that didn't really scare me. And still today, I have people writing to me saying that I really like Feed Hive. It's so much better than Buffer. And that's not that Buffer is a bad product. It's just that there are users out there that will prefer exactly my version. And if the market is big enough, that small amount of users that prefer exactly your version will be sustainable. That will be enough to actually run a business. So that would be my final advice here to any founders out there. Don't be afraid of that question, like, how does this differ? It's fairly completely okay to say, well, it doesn't really, but there's just so much demand for this that I'm going to bid in with my way. And that's really
nice. Okay, I think that's a nice note to end this episode. I want to thank you so much, Simon, for taking your time to come on the show and for answering all the questions. And I hope to see and hear you soon. And also, I hope to see you next time to the audience on the next episode.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you for watching Decoding the Code. A new episode will be available every week. So don't forget to tune in next Monday. For past episodes, check out the website, decoding.show.